This. Let's see. Before I start that, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect. What's the plan? We just going to bounce back and forth based on whose slide it is?
I think that, because there's nothing really technical, that might be a really good idea. You guys put a lot of stuff. You guys do a lot of really cool stuff. So I think we'll just try to get to what we can. I'm incredibly impressed at the skill you guys have. Just like
still, Michelle's stuff looks a lot better than mine. Mine looks pretty thrashed, but it works. It's not attractive, but it works.
everything Michelle, just looks.
Michelle's quite a better artist than I am, or seamstress than I am a seamster.
It's you guys both put a lot of really. I am really glad you guys have lots of cool stuff, because I'm looking at my stuff in comparison with my gloves. I'm like, man, my stuff looks real lame in comparison. You guys got jackets.
Give it time. Give it time. Give it time. This was a good idea for a topic, and that was all you. So we're good to go. So I'm going to show my little preview video that I made, and then I'll put that in full screen and on loop, and then we'll start. I'll do a little intro at 5 for a minute or two, and then I'll let you guys start it up. Is Michelle actually going to make it to this?
I think so.
So she lives in a cabin in the woods with no power and no internet. So she would have to go into town and find somewhere to go sit at a coffee shop or something to log on.
She was active in the Google Doc until a couple minutes ago.
I know, she and I were active at the same time. I was formatting all the slides to look similar, and she was making changes to slides. So
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Oh geez. All right, well, I'm gonna put this video on, step away for 10 minutes. I'm trying to make dinner a little bit, and then we'll get started right around 5.
Sounds good.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Michelle. What's happening?
Nothing much.
Are you I picked a good happy song, right?
Yeah. Oh, good. That's my baby boy right there. Yeah, I love
Uh-huh.
baby boy. Oh, Liz. Liz. Yeah, look, Liz right there. Oh, Chrissy. Chrissy. Oh, that's me right there.
That is so cool.
Oh,
I killed the music.
oh
Oh,
no, that's so bad.
I know. That's the first time you've seen that, huh?
I've seen it. Yeah, once more.
Oh, did you see it once more?
Yeah,
Oh, for the women one. I missed the women one. I know. I was super bummed.
yes.
I
Yes.
got held up. What was our total number of participants tonight? Attendees, if you will. Do you guys know?
20.
Either
20.
20?
Yeah.
We're a little shy of average, but I think we can get started and we'll see how many more folks join in. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I am the current director of Winter Mountaineering School in my last year of directorship. Thankfully, frankly, next year I get to go back to just being a regular instructor. I don't have to be the director anymore, which is it's not a bad job. Somebody's got to do it, but it's much more fun to be a regular instructor. But anyways, a little bit about us. We are an all volunteer group of folks that started as students at Winter Mountaineering School and were invited to become instructors uh, out of a passion for teaching introduction to mountaineering skills. And traditionally, we hold our program at the end of January, beginning of February in the Adirondacks. And then more recently, we started back up a White Mountain section that Michelle was actually leading for the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
3 years. Yeah, yeah, 3 years.
3 years. And that happened in March and was kind of a smaller truncated version of the program, but she did a great job with it for the last couple of years, and I think she's in the same boat as I am. She's ready to not be in charge of it anymore and hand it to somebody else so she can just go back to being a regular instructor. But we teach introduction to mountaineering schools through a handful of programs that you can learn more about on our website, winterschool.org. And then I'll kind of hit back on that a little bit at the end of the presentation, and kind of give you a couple other things that you can kind of chew on as you prepare for next winter. Even though this winter is not over yet, we're kind of starting to plan for our next winter's adventures, which hopefully will be a return to the Adirondacks and the White Mountains. And with that, I'll let Amanda get it started. Do you have the presentation up, Amanda?
Yes, I do. Let me share screen and start the presentation.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Oh yeah, why not? Why not? Let's do that.
Yeah. So I'm Michelle. I'm Michelle Cornfarrell, and I've been doing winter mountaineering school for 8 years now. And I started winter mountaineering school when I was 40. And I got excited about making my own gear. And so some of the things you're gonna see is like 6 years old, or I think Jeremy is like 8 years before me, and right, Jeremy?
No, I think I'm 10 or so. 10-ish, something like 10. I don't know how
10.
many. 10-ish. So only 2 years before you or so.
Okay.
And hi, everybody. My name's Amanda. I'm one of the newbies here. A lot of the kind of gear and stuff I've made, I come from mostly quilt making and garment sewing. So while I'm newer into making DIY gear, it's a lot of fun. So hopefully I can give you guys some cool stuff to look at. All right, we ready to dive in, friends?
Woohoo!
All right. Boop. So, Michelle, is this one of yours? Do you want to talk about it really quick?
Yeah, so when you're out there in the winter, you grab your poles to get to unlock and uplock and go up and down. You need an extra piece of string on all your zipper bolt pulls. So so tie an extra piece of string, and you can see 2 extra pieces of string. The blue goes through the bottom of the thread, the pole and in itself, and then yeah, the other one just is like a knot.
Very cool. All right, I'm gonna move to the next one. So this is a modification that I made immediately following last year's winter mountaineering school when I almost lost one of my liner mittens. I think we went up to the summit of Wright Peak, and I didn't have any attachment points. So I went to pull it off because I had a separate glove inside, and it almost flew off the mountain. I have a habit of losing absolutely anything that's ever handed to me. So even in my regular life, I try to clip things. I lost my wedding ring this morning and my husband nearly murdered me. So found it. It was found. It was found. Just I lose everything. So on my, something I do, almost everything has an attachment point. So if you're just starting out with trying to do modifications to gear, anything that you stuff in the back of you, like the kangaroo pouch in your pack, considering adding a loop or something to connect it to, because I've lost a lot of stuff with unplanned butt slides down mountains this season. So it's a quick thing to do. And then you can add a string. My parents always called the dummy cord for mittens. So I call that for my nephew, when it's a string that goes all the way through your outfit. So everything can like hang in the inside of your jacket, or you can add like little clips if you're not as, I never remember to put the dummy cord on. So I have these little clips to everything. So it's a really quick, easy, modification you can make to your gear to keep all the cool stuff you make or any of the stuff that you buy from being sacrificed to the mountain. Okay, ice axe protection. I think this is you, Michelle.
Oh yeah. So there's a million things out there that you can do for ice axe protection, but so the one I see right here is a piece of red leather, and they've done some stitching, and then they've done a red cord that goes through the ice axe. You know, this is an amazing piece of gear. We don't always see these things. We normally see a tennis ball on the end of our ice axe, and that's like good ice axe protection.
More than likely, we see it sitting on the trail side, having fallen off from.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lost one on Sawteeth, so if anybody finds it, it has my name on it, and I'm sorry.
So one of my favorite things is rigging tape. Rigging tape is it's like you know, it stretches, it's black, it stretches, and it sticks to itself. And so I use that to cause insulation on the handle. You know, when you lose warmth on the handle.
All right, what's the next one? Down quilt.
This was me. So I think we should also say that we started out with a bunch of kind of our projects that we've made over the years to give you guys some initial excitement and inspiration. And then once we get further into this, we'll start talking about some of the tips and tricks that we've learned over the years. So this is one of probably my second or third projects that I made. This one's going on, I bet you this one's going on 10 years plus. It's a summer quilt, but we've actually used it a lot in car camping and shoulder seasons. If we don't have, it's very lightweight and super simple. And so if one of the sleeping bags that my wife and I have that isn't quite to the temperature rating we want it to be, this is a nice, it was a relatively affordable and cheap way, or I'm sorry, and light way to add an extra 15 degrees to a sleeping bag. So like I have a -20 bag, a 5 above bag, and a 25-degree bag. If I think it's going to be a little colder, typically I add this on the 25-degree bag more than anything else. But if I this plus my 25-degree bag is just a couple ounces lighter and definitely more compact than like my 5-degree bag. So it's kind of a nice, we initially I thought I was only going to use this in the summer, but it turns out we use it all the time. Both my wife and myself, and sometimes the dogs, if it's a colder camping trip and the dogs actually need something other than just laying in between our sleeping bags, we take this for them.
And down quilt double wide, is that you, Michelle?
Yeah. Well, I'm with Jeremy on that. Is I'm pretty much sleep underneath a quilt. And I like this quilt that I built. This is my first quilt. It was a double wide that I could cinch up underneath my hammock. And you can see on the left side, I guess, that it's like twice as wide as what you're going to sleep on. So I use this. This is my first underquilt for my hammock. But I quickly realized that like I could use this as my my full sleeping bag. You know, it's about 10 ounces less than my 20-degree bag. So there's a lot of weight there that is just to warmth that I don't need in the bag. So look at the next picture. So you can see on the ends, I drew up 4 corners to hang that on my sleeping bag. or if I didn't want to use it on my sleep bag, I could use it as my foot box. So a foot box is like, how it like curves in around your foot, like a mommy bag. So the whole thing was like created with 1.1 ounces of ripcord, and you can see it. I used 1000 down, and no CM mesh is like, what you using the no CM mesh is for the baffles. I'll show you that in a few minutes.
Cool. All right, I'll bop to the next one. Down quilt, also puffy skirt instead of puffy pants.
Yeah. Yeah, so you see the top, I used a belt instead of a baffle. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's probably your favorite thing that you've ever made. I don't think I've ever seen you not wearing that at Winter Mountaineering School since you made that.
Right. It's super warm, super warm. On the next slide, you'll see how thick it is. So you see that? It's like 4.5 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super thick. Yeah, very warm. I use these baffles. You can see the cinches. This is like a silly idea of mine that you could like lift it up. All right, next picture.
Mhm.
All right, so if you don't know, baffles are made of no-seam. The netting that you use like to make tent doors.
Mhm.
So
a baffle is a layer in between on like a down sleeping bag or a down jacket. The baffle is, if you look at all your sleeping bags there, you'll see sewing ribs in parallel lines going up and down the sleeping bag or up and down the jacket. So what's actually happening in there is you have an internal shell layer, nylon layer that's touching your skin, and an external shell layer that's like exposed to the elements. And in between those is the goose down. But to allow for even lofting, they'll sew a small, extremely lightweight piece of fabric like no-seam mesh or even a really lightweight nylon. They'll sew like a 1 inch or a 2 inch or a 4 inch, however thick the sleeping bag is. They'll sew that in at every 6 inches or so. And so that allows you to get an even distribution of your goose down and maintain a consistent loft across the whole sleeping bag or jacket or whatever. So that's what Michelle's kind of trying to explain right there.
right. Thank you, Jeremy. And you see, I wrote in there the general rule for loft versus warmth. Can you see that?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean that varies. I found, because we're making this stuff ourselves, that sometimes, um the 2 quilts that I've made are only 1.5 inches thick, but one of them is 4.5 inches thick when they're filled with down, and the other one was, a 1/2 inch thick. So it depends on how much down you put in there, and doing the formulas. I don't do formulas.
I can talk about that on a later slide, how to calculate goose down.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, I'll bop to the next one. Construction.
Yeah, so I found that like when cutting synthetics or like ripstop, you should probably use a hot knife. It melts the fabric. And it doesn't if you just cut it, it like frays the rest of its life. So cutting it with a synthetic knife means it just melts it, like when you're cutting rope or any kind of rope, you want to cut it and then you want to melt it quickly. So that's what I found with synthetics. Oh, and measure and mark with a soft pencil. So like a white chalk, or because when you're making all your gear, you're going to want to measure like all your baffle sections, and so you want to measure all that stuff.
Yeah, I use chalk, kind of an opposing color of chalk to mark all my patterns out on the nylons before I cut them. I've never had one of these. I didn't realize something like that existed. That's a pretty nice tool. What I've always done is cut them with a really, I invested in a really nice pair of scissors. I think they were probably like 40 or 50 bucks. And you can send them out to get resharpened every so often. And then what I've always done is just lit a candle, and these nylons that you use predominantly in making gear for backcountry use are extremely thin and lightweight. And so if you just pass them very fast over the candle, you kind of get that same sear effect on the edge. But I like this because this is a one-step process, whereas mine is definitely a two-step process. And that's probably, I would assume, not as expensive as my $50 cutting shears, sewing shears, I believe they're called.
And shears are worth the price, though.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that was my grandma's piece of advice. Spend a lot of money on
Next, down pants.
Yeah, so I have two versions here. My first version is the green pair, which are mine, that have quite a few issues with them. I'm actually one of these days, preferably before next winter, actually, I'm gonna kind of take them apart and re-sew them. I was trying a different baffling technique on that, and it saved quite a bit of time, but it didn't come out how I wanted it to do. So wanted it to be. So I'm actually going to kind of take these back apart a little bit and make them match the version 2, which is the red pair, which is my wife's down pants. The benefit to the green ones, mine, is that they have side zips on them, and this is one of the other things I want to modify. I didn't order quite the right zipper, so they don't come all the way apart, but I have a solution to fix that. So the next step is to kind of fix the zipper problem, and then make the baffling match the red pair. You'll find that, so it's kind of getting into the down conversation a little bit. One trick that I've picked up is the less thick you're going to make the article, the less loft it's going to have, as in inches of insulation, the more frequently you need a baffle seam. So like on a sleeping bag or a quilt, where you're going to go maybe 2 inches of down or 4 inches of down, you maybe only need one every 6 inches or 8 inches. On a pair of pants, where down can move all over the place, and you're maybe only going to put, these only have like 3/4 of an inch on each side, so 1.5 inches total when they're laying flat on the ground. I made one every 3 inches on the red pants, and it worked pretty perfectly. Well, more or less 3 inches. You can definitely tell that they're homemade. Patagonia didn't sew those. But the green ones, I did like an 8-inch quilting style baffle, and it didn't, all the down goes to the bottom of the pants. So I've got to kind of take them apart and redo them. But well, I'll get into the calculating down later. That's kind of a whole nother spiel. So
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. So those green pants are down pants.
they're both down pants. The green and the red are goose down. Yep.
I think the green formula style might work better for like a synthetic, the way it's
Yes.
formed. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Most definitely. It would have worked better with synthetic. It would have worked perfectly with synthetic insulation, but I didn't do a good job on those.
Yeah.
Hence version 1. So next one, this was actually, I tried this on in the kitchen last night. I couldn't find a picture of me wearing this one in the out of doors. I have one somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But anyways, this was actually my very first project, which I would highly recommend a down jacket not be your first project.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it came out really well. Like I was super happy with it. Kind of one of the things that I think is important to capitalize on this is it's extremely minimalist in nature. The goal was to get as warm of a jacket for as light of weight as possible. And so you'd be hard pressed to find a jacket that's comfortable down to -25 degrees that only weighs 10 ounces. Most other jackets in this category on the market are probably, I would guess, closer to 30 ounces for a similarly warm jacket. And so the important thing to think about when you're sewing a garment is what do you ultimately want out of it? Like this one has no hand pockets because I wear it around camp. I'm wearing big mittens, so I don't need hand pockets. This one only has a 3/4 zip because I'm not in and out of it all the time. So it's not that like it goes on once and then it comes off when I go to bed. So I didn't care about a full zip. I added a hood to it because the pattern didn't have a hood. And then one of the other key things I did that was pretty cool was I did variable fill. So I did 4 inches of fill in the chest, maybe not 4 inches, it might be a little less than 4 inches of fill in the chest, but only 1.5 inches in the arm. So it's extremely warm around my core and it's less warm around my arms. And you'll find this is kind of a mountaineering thing more than a gear thing, but if you keep your core really warm, especially with me, if you keep your core really warm, then your arms and extremities they tend to just follow in suit. They're much easier to keep warm. So I was even though this was my first project ever and a lot of the seams came out extremely hideous, I was pretty stoked on the end product.
Cool.
Ooh, look at that sexy vest.
Vest. I'm making one of these. I have the material, by the way.
Wait.
So so when I started winter mountaineering school, I realized I ran really hot, and I couldn't take things around my chest or around my neck. I couldn't take like a lot of heat around my neck and on my back. You're already carrying a pack, so you don't want heat on your pack, and so I developed this silly thing. So it has a loft in the front, in the green area. There's it's a synthetic loft. And then on the back, it's just net. I got it off of a sleeping bag, bag that was just like, okay, I save everything. So on the let's see, on the left side, you can see the zipper pocket, and that zipper pocket, is a huge pocket. It goes all the way across the chest, and it zippers across to let's see the next picture. I'll show you. Okay, so you can see the blue pouch right there. It hangs across my whole chest, and it not locks in underneath my armpit on the left side. Yeah, And that's an old from gloves. You know, when you have gloves that, like, you know, connect in the middle, I just cut those things off and I put them in there. And so that holds the old chest pocket. The chest pocket starts from the right side and goes all the way across to the left side. So I can reach into from my right side and get my snacks. The whole thing is warm across my belly, so it keeps me warm. It keeps my food warm the whole time. And then if you look at the netting, you can see there's a little yellow cross straps that I can just pull out across my chest. I think is there one more picture of this?
Oh, nope.
No, that's all you get. It's a crazy chest vest.
You have to come to Winter Mountaineering School and see this in person, because it's actually a really creative design that solved a pretty legit problem that Michelle was having. It's probably one of my favorite projects she's made of hers. So.
Thank you.
So
next one's mine. So this is a project I would actually recommend as a first project. It's a lot of fabric at one time, so fabric management's probably the hardest part, but it's a super simple thing to make, and it's this black tarp. And so I use it as a ultra lightweight summer shelter. I have in the past. I don't get to do near as much summer backpacking as I used to, sadly. But now we use it all the time as part of our camp kitchen at Winter Mountaineering School. We take it on car camping trips and pitch it in the desert when it's really hot to give a little shade. But simply put, it's just you buy twice as much fabric as you need, cut it in half, sew the long ends together as in what's called a French felled seam, which we're not going to get into too much detail on this because you can go watch 1,000 YouTube videos on all the different seam types and how to sew them. So it's kind of unproductive for us to really discuss that here when it's been beaten to death on the internet, but we can give you the inspiration.
I love French felled.
Who doesn't? So you French felled seam the middle seam together, which is the ridge line there.
Yeah.
And then all you do is just do a rolled seam for what feels like 50 feet around the outside. And then after that, you sew. What I did was sewed 9 different tie out points onto their own separate fabric reinforcement strips, so to speak. So I made either a corner, 4 corner pieces. I made 4 that were 180 degree, like on the edges, and then I made one that was a full circle that's in the center. And basically with this, I can pitch it in a ton of different arrangements, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish with it. And I think this was my second project, and this was an infinitely easier undertaking, and I finished that and felt good about my life choices, basically. The key that I do here, I didn't put the weight on this one because it depends on what season, but in the summer I use smaller mill cord, 1.5 mil cordage, for all my tie outs. And then in the winter I use longer ones, and also I use 3 mil. And the reason they're longer is because snow on the ground, you have less rocks, sticks, stakes, stumps, whatever to tie off to. In the winter, you have to be a little more selective about your staking pattern. And so I use longer ones in the winter, and it changes the weight pretty substantially. I would say probably like 4 or 5 ounces different in weight between the summer weight and the winter weight of this item. So, yeah. And there's Michelle's versions of them. Same thing. I think you made both, right, Michelle?
What's that?
Did you make both of those?
Well, no. So what you're looking at right now is a sil nylon tarp and my Cuban fiber tarp. So so the Cuban fiber tarp is on your right side, right? The translucent blue.
Yeah.
Yes. And the sill tarp is Mark's tarp, which is like, he's been using it for years.
He did. His was made by a friend of the family. He didn't actually make his.
Right. Well, all this stuff is like very simple. Okay. So we're talking about simple rectangles for all this gear, right? Just big old rectangles. And so I got a chance to play with these two dynamics. I've been using my Cuban fiber tarp or Dyneema fiber tarp for about 7 years. And in this picture, this is like, just 2 years ago. The sill nylon tarp, it when snow comes on it or rain comes on it, it like bows, hugely. So the sill nylon tarp, one, it's like twice the weight, and then two, all the all the parts of nature that just like make it fall in and bow, and it doesn't make as much reason to use it when you have the Cuban fiber tarp, because the Cuban fiber tarp is like ultralight. All the water sheds off it. It doesn't stretch.
In the bottom of the. Sure. The important thing to point out about Cuban fiber, though, is it's about 4 times the cost of sill nylon.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So while sill nylon has some downsides, it's definitely has much more stretch and pliability to it. Is certainly is twice the weight. Cuban fiber it's what they make sails out of, racing boat sails out of, but it's 4 times the weight, or 4 times the cost, excuse me, and is also a bit more fragile and a bit harder to repair than sill nylon is.
Half the weight, and I've been using one tarp for about 8 years. That blue tarp that you see in the picture, I've been using for about 8 years. But what it doesn't do is you cannot make a not make a trash bag. You cannot make a liner, anything that has resistance. You cannot use it for your feet. You can't use it for anything that moves back and forth. You can't use it for a bag, but it does work very well for a tarp.
Click through. Jeremy, a bivy?
2 bivvies, version 1 and version 2. You'll notice, I will say it's important to realize, while you will save somewhat, you'll save a little bit of money on the construction of these projects, you might also learn that sometimes it takes more than one version to get it to nail it, so to speak. So the first version I made was a blue topped bivvy, and I tried to put a kind of like an awning, like a tent. Like a tent awning on the front of it. You know how when you open up the inside door, you've got what is that called? The space in between the exterior of the tent and what I'm talking about, though. Vestibule. Thank you. There we go. That's the magic word. The vestibule. Hey, Amanda, for the win. I tried to put a vestibule on it, and it didn't work. And I actually just need to remove the vestibule. Otherwise, I nailed the rest of it. But you can see it came out 1 ounce heavier because of the vestibule attempt that didn't work. And then on version 2 of it, um, it it came out an ounce lighter, and I changed the dimensions a little bit for version 2 to handle the sleeping slightly larger sleeping bag. But either way, both of them came out really nice. The blue one, which has the vestibule on it, I took that one and camped at 11,000 feet on Rainier with it. Was pretty stoked. Not a bivvy's not for everyone, but if you're a minimalist tent person, or you like to fast pack it all, then I would highly recommend a bivvy as like a good second project, because you can make a bivvy for about 30 or 40 bucks, and maybe 5 or 6 hours worth of sewing effort after you've finished the tarp and gotten the French felled seam down. And you're going to have something that weighs less than most retail options, substantially less than a lot of retail options, and at a fraction of the cost for really not a lot of time invested in it.
Jeremy, I'm right there with you on sleeping in a bivvy. I like to sleep in a bivvy now. All you need is a tarp over your head, and this sexy bag that just keeps all your gear inside the bag. So this is just a basic rectangle. I know it doesn't look like that, but you see the dark blue is just a sexy rectangle with a bathtub floor. So it folds up in a square, and it's just seam sealed. And then there's the green is like 2 flaps that overlap, and you can see the turquoise is my down. That's my down sleeping bag. So that's my version of bivvy, and I've been using that one for about 4 years now, just under a tarp, my cuban fiber tarp, just to keep the extra rain and wind off of the top. But that's it.
Cool. All right, adhesives.
Oh, my goodness, I love E6000. So you can put all your patches on your pack with this glue. And then also I put some seam sealers there. Those things will, so anytime you sew anything or you make holes in fibers, you have to close those holes up, and these products will seal them, but you have to apply them. And E6000 also applies patches.
Okay. The next one for interest time, and the Zarski.
Oh, who wants to talk about that?
So we're kind of running, we're pushing our time limit, but this is an emergency shelter that we use. The diagram doesn't really paint it a picture very well, but it's a super lightweight emergency shelter of 2 runs of traditional nylon, or I'm sorry, 2 runs of silicone impregnated nylon, sil nylon. Oh no, I had it right. 2 runs of traditional nylon, unsiliconized, and then 1 run of sil nylon, it's called, which is silicone impregnated nylon, which makes it waterproof, not breathable, but waterproof. And so you sew kind of like the tarp, where you just sew the 2 long sides together, and then you sew the 3rd one in, and you kind of make a cylinder or a worm out of it, if you will. And then on either end sew a drawstring in. And so it's these things are super lightweight, and you can customize the length based on how many people you anticipate needing to put on them. But many of us instructors carry one of these at winter mountaineering school as kind of an emergency shelter if something were to happen to one of the students, just because it fits in a small stuff sack and it's super lightweight.
Well, and also, some of the people that I've made these Zarskis for, use them as single self shelters. So they'll use those pick points and just tie them up in a lean-to, and they'll sleep inside these things.
Oh boy,
Yeah. No, it's
conservation would be a huge problem with that. I wouldn't personally do that.
no, we've done it for a couple of years now. They're really great places to sleep.
Okay, so this is one of mine that's, I'm just going to go over really quick of if, some of the sewing is a bit intimidating, you can still have a lot of fun kind of modifying gears. So one of the things I did was around my entire pack, and I did this on my husband's too, is, adding different connection points. And this took a little bit of trial and error because D rings did not work very well. Actually, for some of the ones I would get from like Joanne Fabrics or Michael's Craft Supply, just the weight of things would just bend the heck out of these. So, adding different connection points to store your stuff, especially snowshoes. Um, I see a lot of people when I'm on the trail will try to wrap them up in all of these different things in the back of your pack. But if it's bananas cold or you're switching from crampons to snowshoes and back, you want that to go very, very quickly. So this is just one of the modifications that, I made of just adding the rings that you use like a key ring. And I got a pack of 40 at Joann's. I looked like a crazy person because I think I got googly eyes at the same time. But, it's a great thing to start adding these, if you see that, hey, I wish I could put something here on this pack, and you're not quite feeling confident enough to sew something, you can fit these, key rings almost anywhere. And then this orange thing that I have, I found at Home Depot is just this gigantic twist tie. So when I'm switching my snowshoes on and off, I think we timed it. It takes about 4 minutes, depending if I have gloves or mittens, to take my snowshoes off and put them on the pack. And if it's bananas cold and you got to move, it's a really great thing to think of.
Nice. I like that, Amanda.
And then really quick, I destroy everything that I own. So, making gear is a lot of fun. Also repairing gear is going to take a lot of time and be a lot of fun. So this is just, I darned a pair of gloves that I had, ripped on a zipper. And I absolutely love these things. I lost them a week later, but there's bananas amounts of YouTube videos. I lose everything. I don't understand how I've gotten to this point in my life. Probably just luck, but there's lots of great YouTube videos about how to darn things. You don't need a lot of special equipment. I actually did this entirely wrong and it still worked. So don't be afraid to make mistakes when you're fixing and making gear. It's going to take a lot of trial and error to figure out what works.
I think that's a huge point. Don't be afraid to modify, adapt, make a mistake, start over. Like people, we're in a state in this time and age and everything where people just buy gear and they put it on a pedestal and they're so afraid to modify it. If you find, especially like a backpack, if you find a backpack that you love, but it has a feature you don't want, or it's missing a feature that you want, don't be afraid to cut that feature off that you don't want, or hand sew on the loops that you do want so that you can accomplish what Amanda did. Like that's huge. And that's the first step in making your own gear, is not being afraid to take a pair of scissors to something that you just spent $150 on to make it exactly what you want it to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Worst case, you patch it and suck it up, Buttercup.
Oh, I love this one. I love this one. Oh, we can't go away without this one. I love this one.
So one of the other things I've done, and this was also my fault, I lost one of his gaiters, but they didn't make them anymore. So that we took the remaining one and we made a pattern. And one of my, favorite things to do is I got a bag of old clothes and my nephew's old coats. because little kids' coats are great for like findings and zippers because they can be expensive when you're going to stores and buying things. So because they don't make those type of trail gaiters anymore, I used one as a pattern to make another one. And I annoyed all of my neighbors using the hammer to, put the grommets in. But, when you're doing these kind of test runs, use scrap fabric. I had a from a marathon, I actually did not run, but they gave me a free shirt. So score, I made a pattern and we tested out the fit. And I used a remnant of something I got at Joann's. So he has another pair of gaiters for, I think it was like $3.99. And when he bought them new, they were like $40 for some unknown reason. But if you lose something, you're like, man, I want another one of these, and they don't make them, you can make patterns out of things, and it's great. So again, don't be afraid to cut stuff up and annoy all of your neighbors.
No, I really love making patterns out of things that already exist.
And then one last thing for modifying and repairing gear, I like to mention a lot is check your stuff at the end of a hike. So this ended up getting rust on it within 1 week because I left it in the bag. I didn't dry it off. So one of the things we're going to do is, we have to sharpen them. We're going to add, some of the black paint you'll see here is Rust-Oleum. So, again, trying to find things to, keep your gear, the best you can, the most effective. And there's a really great, video on the REI website about how to sharpen crampons. And depending on the snowshoes you have, you can kind of do the same thing. I'm rough on equipment. That's why I don't like to borrow anything because I destroy everything I touch. But, it's going to take some, fixing for stuff. So don't be afraid to fix and repair, not just the fabric stuff.
Well, and I don't mind putting a little bit of oil, just any kind of oil on my equipment to make sure that it stays safe through the next season. So, olive oil, coconut oil, just rub it down and it won't rust.
So we're running a little bit low on time. Do you mind if I scoot through to our tips and tricks slide that we have?
Sure.
Yeah, go.
Let me see. So this is, I think for Jeremy, I think you have some of these and you too, Michelle, for, gear and where to find some stuff.
Yeah, I think those things on there.
Yeah. So you guys can all see, kind of read through this list, but one of the things that I wanted to hit on a lot is I'm a landscape architect by trade, so I have AutoCAD access to me. AutoCAD's stupid expensive, but a free alternate to that is SketchUp. You can accomplish quite a bit on the free version of SketchUp, and it's a fairly easy software to learn. But as far as calculating material needs and calculating down needs, it's really simple math. You design the product you want, kind of chew on your dimensions, get a tape measure out on the floor, lay it out with a seamstress tape measure, the foldable, rollable type, and just start playing with it and kind of scribbling on paper and coming up with your dimensions of how you want a pattern to be. And this is maybe after you've bought a couple at the store from some of these gear shops that are in our materials list, and you've sewn a couple things, but now you're getting adventurous and you want to try and create your own design because either A, it's not available on the market, or you can't find exactly what you want and you want to make it exactly how you want it to be. So I start with a piece of scrap paper and a tape measure and start laying out dimensions and laying out how I want something to go. And then I add my seam allowances and then I just do my math, and that's how much I need each piece to be X number of inches by X number of inches. And that's how I come up with how much material I need. Same thing for calculating goose down. If you lay out the dimensions of the article, whatever it's going to be, a jacket, a pants, like a sleeping bag or something, then it's just taking the three-dimensional numbers of each baffle, calculating them all up, and you'll come up with a total cubic inches that you need. And so goose down is sold by the ounce, and it's sold in different fill qualities, which means like 900 fill power, 800 fill power. I've seen 1,000 fill power a couple times. I'm not sure that's actually a real thing. And then all the way as low as like 300 fill power. And so the higher the number you buy, the higher quality of goose down it is, the cleaner it is. And so
Well,
basically
I think I put on there, like, you know, it was like the amount of power equals inch per square inch.
well, the
Right.
amount of power, the amount of fill power is how many square or how many cubic inches you can fill with 1 ounce of that goose down. So if
Right.
it's 900 fill power, 1 ounce of down will do 900 cubic inches. And so
Right.
for like the average jacket, you need usually 4 to 6. For a pair of pants, you need 2 to 3 ounces. For a quilt, you need probably 6 to 12, depending on what you want it to be. A sleeping bag is, you know, I've some of the -40 mountaineering style sleeping bags are up to 48 ounces of goose down. But it's laborious math, but it's very simple math. It's just length times width times height, and you just do that math over and over and over again. And then what the pro tip on that is add 20%, because the first time, well, every time, but the first time you make a goose down item, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but you'll figure it out. You lose a little bit. It goes everywhere. And so you add 20% because the goal is to try and get 10% overfill in the article, and only 10% of it flying through the air having your dogs chase it.
Well, no, and what I found is, like, you iron the clothes, the how you're going to close it, you iron it, and then you carefully just handle the down, and you carefully move it in, and you put it inside the baffle, and you slowly move your hand out of the baffle, because it's all about it is static
Minimizing
electricity.
and minimizing airflow. You'll figure it
Yes.
out. If you ever on a goose down item, you'll learn, and it'll be fine. And so clothing patterns, I usually buy patterns from WMS Fabrics. And then I do normally, you know, like Amanda had said, she did a dry run. I normally buy, like for a clothing item, I normally buy cheap cotton, a little bit of cheap cotton, and maybe not make both layers with it, but I'll usually make the inside layer with it, and just
Yeah.
see if I've got my dimensions right and how I like it. And then the exterior layer has to be bigger, nor at a magnitude bigger. So like if you're going to do a 2-inch loft pair of pants, the inside inseam, or I'm sorry, not inseam, the inseam more or less stays the same. That's where it gets complicated, is the inside, like waist may be one dimension, but in the second, in the shell, it'll be, you know, 4, 6, 8 inches bigger to accommodate for the goose down, basically, so that the goose down goes out away from your body and not gets compressed in towards your body. All little things. I mean, start with a small project and work your way up to a bigger project is basically what I can tell you. And then as far as other lessons, I think that I've learned is duct tape is an amazing patch for a rip and goose down, whether it was store-bought or homemade. We've got stuff at our house that I haven't whipped the sewing machine out and fixed in a number of years that has like 2 or 3-year-old duct tape on it, that at some point I'm going to whip the sewing machine out and fix it, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. And then another one that I like, since I am not that good of a seamster, is bright thread. So everything I sew with red polyester thread. That's another key one. Buy polyester thread, not cotton thread. There's a huge difference between the two.
Thank you.
You don't want cotton in exterior in backpacking gear. But I use bright red thread, and then The key thing, which I broke that one time on those pair of pants, is don't use red fabric. Because then it defeats the purpose. But the benefit of the red thread is, even though it's ugly when it's finished because it doesn't match the color of the materials, it makes it very easy to see if you're doing a good job and your stitching is nice and your tension is right on your sewing machine, and the stitching is where you want it to be. Like, the pros match the color of the thread to the color of the fabric, but the amateurs pick, if they're smart, they pick a bright color thread so that they can very easily distinguish if they're doing a good job. And then the other cool thing is, if I handmade it because it has red thread on it, because I exclusively use red thread. And then, as far the other one that I wanted to hit on is like, so another good question that you get a lot is, what kind of sewing machine do I need? Invest in a nice sewing machine. I inherited mine from my grandmother, and it's a really nice Singer from the 80s that has, you need, so with these lightweight nylon materials, you need the ability, they're extremely easy to bunch, and they're extremely easy to not catch in the machine foot very well. And so you very much need to be able to adjust the tensions on both your bobbin thread and the thread coming out through the needle to make sure that you're getting a good tight stitch and a good sewing pattern. So I can't stress enough that a quality sewing machine will save you so much frustration in the long run as far as homemade projects go.
Now, do you guys use walking feet for working on this material, or just the standard foot?
I think the standard foot. I
Well,
don't know.
I'm
You'd
I
know
don't
if it was a walking foot.
So
Yeah, I
all
don't
my
honestly know what
gear,
I'm doing.
so all my gear has been built on the 1956 Singer sewing machines.
Oh, mine's only from the 80s.
And just to add to the trend, I got a new Husqvarna Viking Topaz 40, and I don't know how to do nothing on it. It's done 2 gowns, but nothing cool.
Well, that's all right. It's done 2 gowns. You're well on your way.
So we are hitting time. Do we want to see if there's questions from folks? Let me see. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, so I forgot to say this in the beginning, but if you guys have any questions, use either the chat feature or the Q&A feature, and we'll fire through as many as we can in the next couple minutes.
Don't be shy, friends.
We lost a few people. We're at the 6 o'clock mark, so we've already lost a couple.
Oh, they're yawning. Who wants to make gear?
Pretty fun. It's kind of cool. I don't know. It's a niche thing, but it's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah.
It's awesome too, because like one of the things at Winter Mountaineering School, when everybody put their gear down, so many people had the exact same stuff. So, when there's these little personalized things, no one's going to walk off with their pants, especially with the red thread, because those are yours.
Yep. Nobody's got the same stuff that I've got. That's for sure. That is cool. It is cool. I don't know. It's a good talking feature. I've been at many of trailheads or summits or intersections. Go, where did you get that jacket? Well, I made it actually. So. Let's see. Yeah, no questions. So we'll wrap. Do you guys have any closing remarks? And then I'll do a peace out from Winter Mountaineering School.
Michelle, do you want to go first?
Hey, Jeremy. Peace out.
Yeah. Peace out. Amanda?
And all I got to say is, don't be afraid to give stuff a shot, and use whatever random fabric you have and just give it a try.
Yeah, do give it a try. Don't be afraid of it. Everything came from raw materials in the start. That fancy jacket you bought or that fancy backpack you bought, somewhere somebody had to design the pattern for it and cut the fabric into each individual section and then sew it together. So it's not this mythical thing that can't be modified, recreated, improved on. So don't be afraid to do it. Then with that note, once again, go check out our website, winterschool.org. We are very much hoping to be back live and in person next winter. Hopefully this this nightmare will end in the coming 6-8 months. Let's hope. We can all get
Yeah.
normal back. But we're the other thing too is now that you all have attended one of our workshops, go join our winter school or our Facebook page. Sorry, it's WMS alumni, I believe it is, or Winter Mountaineering School alumni. I don't know. Google, search us on Facebook. Alumni. I'm not much of a Facebook guy, but it's either WMS alumni or Winter Mountaineering School alumni on Facebook. And join the group, and you can get a lot of good advice from there. As far as gear needs, you can get. There's not a ton of folks on there that are making stuff, but you can certainly. I'm in the group, so you can send a direct message to me. I think Michelle posts on there on a fairly regular basis, so you can send her a message. And Amanda, I don't know if you're on it or not, but find us.
Lurk.
She lurks. I'm a lurker too. I only respond if you call me out on it. I'll respond, but otherwise I tend to not get on Facebook too much. But yeah, thanks for attending, guys, and hopefully go check out our program. We'll post next winter's program offerings. Usually in July we open registration, so we'd love to see some of you guys at Winter School 2022.
Yeah, 2022. Yeah.
And with that note, have a lovely evening, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.